This is an introductory film about Tahirih, inviting producers to make a full-length movie about her. She is the female cosmic spirit who dawned upon the earth in Persia in the mid-1800s. Tahirih means pure one, and her other title of Qurratu'l Ayn means solace of the eyes. The prophet, Tahirih, called for the end of the archaic practices of the Islamic era. She tore off her veil in front of an assembly of men. One was so horrified to see the face of a woman in public, he cut his own throat. Noted Cambridge Orientalist Professor Edward Granville Brown wrote, "The appearance of such a woman as Tahirih Qurratu'l Ayn is in any country and any age a rare phenomenon, but in a country such as Persia, it is a miracle." Alike in virtue of her marvellous beauty, her rare intellectual gifts, her fervid eloquence, her fearless devotion, and her martyrdom, she stands forth incomparable and immortal amidst her countrywomen. Had the Babi religion no other claim to greatness, this was sufficient, that it produced a heroine like Tahirih Qurratu'l Ayn.
I am melted, my God, by that mercy whereby thou didst create me at a time when nothing existed save it. I was formed whirling, after a pattern that no one besides thee had fashioned, so that thou mightest set me in motion. Thus might I be brought out of the dimension of the veils of glory by the attraction exercised by thy divine essence, and thus might I transcend the station of illusions by means of love for thy shining countenance.
O Mother of the world, O point of divine knowledge, O divine essence, O lotus of creation, O most great spirit, O Saraswati, O Tara, O Kuan Yin, O eternal Shekinah, O Zoroaster, O Buddha, O Mary, Mother of God, O Jesus, O Muhammad, O Fatima, O Promised One, O Maid of Heaven, O Baha, O Dove, O Love, my beloved.
This film is the story of Tahirih and her messages, messages which have been marginalized and deliberately concealed from us. Her messages are as relevant to us today as they were to the people of her own time. She empowered people by encouraging them to listen to their own intuitive divine knowledge, which directly opens souls to higher truth. She came to free humanity from superstitions and dogmas and to raise the status of women. Tahirih operated on many levels of existence at the same time. In one instance, she was the primal creative force and the Word. Yet in another, she was the intermediary spirit or maid of heaven that communicates revelation. In both these instances of spirit and word, Tahirih manifested them in the flesh. And yet in other instances, she was a Messiah in her own right, a letter of living in Babism, a mystical poetess, and a woman of the day, and a social radical revolutionary. She came to initiate a new cycle for humanity, one where duality gives way to wholeness in all spheres of life. Therefore, is it any wonder that her words ring out again to us in this day, in this presentation of Tahirih, Divine Voice?
Persia, mid-19th century. What had once been a glorious land of culture had become fundamental and petrified, where power was unjustly used by those in authority. This oppression was perpetrated by the male clergy in the name of religion. Women were counted as little more than cattle and were considered not to possess a soul. Their faces had to be veiled, lest a man be defiled and his passions aroused by seeing the face of a woman in public. There was a stranglehold on the female gender, as most were kept in an illiterate state, and girls could be married off as young as 9 years old. This was the world to which Tahirih was born.
I was born with the name of Fatima Zareen Taj Baragani Salima in Qazvin, Iran, in 1814 to a wealthy family. My father, known as Mullah Salih, was of conservative Islamic Shiite belief and was a religious leader with a great deal of influence. I was heralded as a child prodigy. One of my earliest thoughts about my destiny was that I came to effect change in the world. I needed to learn about the society into which I was born. It became clear to me that there were religious beliefs and unjust laws in place that hindered the progress of humanity. I could see too from my own household that females were not afforded the same status as men, and in fact were basically inconsequential in any decision making. I became determined not to let these injustices hinder my potential. It was fortunate that my father recognized my ability and allowed for my education. I took to the opportunity with great enthusiasm and absorbed all the religious writings, jurisprudence, literary studies, languages and translations available. I could quote any verse from the Quran or the Hadith, and began writing mystical poetry as a little girl. My father allowed me to listen to his discussions with many religious leaders from behind a curtain, and sometimes debate with them. They appeared amazed at the truth I laid before them. Apparently the hand of the divine was watchful of my development, for I was fortunate to have an uncle, Mullah Ali, who followed the mystical Shaikhi school of thought. He believed the promised Qaim, the 12th Imam, would come to release us from the dogma of the past. These are the books my uncle gave me, books my father forbade me to read. I recognized the truth within these teachings. I was ecstatic. I knew of my connection to the Godhead, which often came through prophetic dreams. I was destined to be a leader and a seed of change in the world. I am the portal. Through my message, humanity connects with higher truth. Much to my dismay, my father arranged for me to marry my cousin, Mullah Muhammad Baragani, when I was 14 years old. In accordance with the customs of the day, the marriage took place and we moved to Atabat for my husband to further his studies. We lived in Karbala most of the time. We had 3 children. My husband was a strict Shiite. This put an ideological rift between us in that I was drawn to the progressive ideals of Shaikhi thought championed by Sheikh Ahmed and Syed Kazim Irashti, who were also awaiting the declaration of the Promised One. I initiated study circles. Those imbued with the message became known as Qurratu'l, a name derived from the holy title Syed Kazim bestowed upon me. He called me Qurratu'l Ayn, or solace of the eyes. It was during this period that I had a profound dream of a young man. In the dream I called to him and said, "It is now time to begin our mission," and he answered with mystical verses which I penned down when I awoke. In 1843, after 14 years of marriage, due to our difference in thought and destiny, I left my family. and set out for Adabad with my sister Marziah. Nothing could stop me from fulfilling my sacred purpose. Along the way, many people became attracted to the teachings which filled their hearts with hope for progress. I am the Word. This continuous flow of revelation will always be available to humankind. I promoted self-gnosis and mystical understanding for the individual. My teachings encouraged radical thinking, such as monogamy, which was unusual at the time because the law allowed for 4 wives. My teachings also advised abstinence from eating meat, and I favoured raw foods. I stressed that it was time for inner knowledge to guide people as they listened to the spirit within, balanced with rational thought. This teaching was known amongst the mystics as the secret key. Many began to refer to me as the return of Fatima, who on one level was considered the mother of creation. Therefore, many called me Mother of the World. I declared myself as the point of divine knowledge, a title my followers, the Qurratu'l acclaimed. I received some writings by a man bearing the title of the Bab, which means the gate. These revelations were about the story of Joseph. He declared his mission on May 23rd, 1844, the very year that many religions around the world were expecting the return of the Promised One. To my great joy, I found that those writings contained the very verses I had heard in my dream. I immediately dispatched a letter to him saying I recognized him as the promised Qaim, and he responded by naming me the 17th letter of the living. In time, he would sometimes refer to himself as Qurratu'l Ayn also, in order to show our divine connection. My movement and his overlapped. We wrote to one another as divine lovers, although we never met in the physical reality. We were the twin stars, whose missions were interconnected. This truth was reflected in the heavens through the fabulous appearance of the double comet Biela and the discovery of Sirius being twin stars. So it was that when 18 letters of the living had independently sought out the Bab, together with him they would form the primal point, or gate, to the future. I was the only woman among the 18 letters of the living. The Bab was previously known as Sayyid Ali Muhammad. His followers were called Babis. Because the Bab made his messianic claim, persecutions began and he was imprisoned. I called for a gathering of the believers to discuss Babism being known as an independent religion and to effect the freeing of the Bab. Mirza Hussain Ali Nuri, who later took the title of Baha'u'llah and began the Baha'i faith, helped organize the event. 81 of us gathered in the 3 adjoining gardens. This meeting, which lasted over a period of 3 months in the summer of 1848, has become well known as the Conference of Badasht. It was my destiny to play a leading role at the Conference of Badasht. Many times, the Bab had instructed the believers to submit to my injunctions, because at this stage they did not fully comprehend my status. As a result, many of my writings and teachings were incorporated into the doctrine of Babism. Nevertheless, I held my teachings in their own right, as the inspiration for the new age. Let deeds, not words, be your adorning. Because religious leaders who felt threatened by me spread malicious rumours of immorality about me, the Bab had bestowed upon me the title of Tahirih, meaning pure one. Thus I became known as Tahirih Qurratu'l Ayn. Under the influence of Qudus, a letter of the living, many of the Babis still held affiliation with the Islamic Shiite sect. However, the time had come when we must make the final break and sever all ties with Islam and become an independent religion. Thus, one evening at the conference, I appeared before Qurrus and many of the followers, and as a sign that women must have freedom and choice, I unveiled.
I am the trumpet. I am the blast. I am the word, the primal word, the word which animates the promised one. I am the word which will set aflight the chiefs and nobles of the world. Like Gabriel, I awaken souls.
Antum al-nujum fi sama il-iftihan, wa al-nasim al-liyan samu fi shuraqal nahar, wa al-mayahal Saraya al-li hayatu kula al-misai, wa al-rijali tata kilu halayha. I ended my oratory with this prophetic verse from the Quran.
Verily, among gardens and rivers shall the pious dwell, in the seat of truth, in the presence of the Creator.
Such an act of unveiling thwarted 1,200 years of patriarchal practice and belief, which fractured all that had been known. So it was that the Conference of Badasht marked the time of establishing Babism as an independent religion, which could no longer be identified with Islam or any other faith. The conference also signaled the ending of the old order. The Bab's writings, in the Holy Book of Bayan, with the pen of divine authority, affirmed what Tahirih claimed at the Conference of Badasht. Indeed, the Bab and Tahirih, who animated his spirit, were as twin messianic figures, two bodies in one singularity at the primal point. Together their appearance marks the beginning of the close of the patriarchal cycle and the opening of the gate to the future civilization of harmony and balance. In moving towards cooperation between the genders, we can only imagine what the world could have become if Tahirih and the Bab had been recognized as the powerful twin manifestations that they were in their own right, in their own time.
The Bab was martyred in 1850. The story of his death held mystery and miracle.
Along with many followers, Tahirih went to spread the news throughout the land of the new day, in spite of being arrested and deported on many occasions. Armed, however, with clarity and devotion, she was able to attract many elite women who helped her in these times of these difficulties. Now, the followers were called Ayanis at this point, but there were some also known as the Qurratiya. Together they numbered in the thousands and became a threat to the status quo of the government of Iran and the religious aspects as well. Declaring and unveiling at the Conference of Badasht unleashed a spiritual force into the world, and women were rising up in other countries, such as the suffragettes in New York and England. The Bab had informed the believers that Tahirih was the mirror of the Word of God on earth and the throne carrier to whom they should turn. Had they truly followed the Bab's injunctions and recognized Tahirih's divine authority, they may not have broken into factions, splintering the impetus of the movement and the power of unity in action.
I was put under house arrest in the home of the police chief, Muhammad Khan Kalantar, in 1850, 6 months after the Bab was martyred. It was still possible for me to spread the teachings. I dispatched messages on wrapping paper that I wrote on with broom bristles using herb juice for ink. I had a dream about the manner in which I would meet my own martyrdom. I developed and released an enlightened theology into the world. I breathed life into a movement for women, a movement which could never be stopped. I knew that the Holy Spirit, the Word which animates, would rise again in the future in living beings. My work for the time being had been completed. In 1852, in the back garden of the police chief, a scarf was wrapped around my neck.
The strangulation was carried out and her body thrown into a shallow well. Many believed Tahirih died that night, but really she entered into another dimension until her voice would be heard again. For she indeed is the Christ Spirit, the voice of the divine feminine principle. She stands for freedom and choice for all people everywhere throughout time immemorial. She stands for a cycle of equality and harmony for humankind, men and women alike. You cannot kill the spirit of the Godhead, which is alive in every age. Ya Tahirih, Ya Tahirih, Ya Qurratu'l Ayn.
Man and woman in harmony, what paradise this world will be, with no more war and care for all. Peace will reign forevermore. We'll walk together hand in hand, every woman, every man, and love will spread across the land. As we learn to understand, we will fly. We will fly. With both sides activated, a balance is created. No longer need we hide out of vine and gentle side. We can fly. We've had power, we've been strong. Men have ruled the world so long. We've had the might, yes we can fight and win. Now we'll walk together hand in hand, every woman, every man, and love will spread across the land. As we learn to understand, we will fly.